I'm going to read to you from Matthew 6. It's the middle of Christ's message. I don't have time to go through the whole message, but I can tell you that jumping in midway is okay, because when he gets to chapter 6 in this message, he's talking about hypocrites, and what a better place to talk about hypocrites than church. Amen. Don't point in church, it's not nice. Hypocrisy is part of who we are as sinners saved by grace. Amen. We always want to put on that we're better than we are. I mean, if you just put on fancy church clothes and think that that's going to take care of your problems, it's not. Your problems are deeper than that. They're in the heart. Pride is what makes us, and it's not just a man thing, it's a person thing. I mean, it's just, everybody's got pride. And in fact, when Christ uses this term hypocrite or hypocrisy, it's a familiar theme throughout his New Testament ministry, his earthly ministry. He will touch on hypocrisy a lot. And in the middle of his sermon, where we're going to jump in on chapter 3, he's going to talk about hypocrisy in 3 areas. And because I'm not preaching on that, I thought I'd just go ahead and tell you them anyway, just because it gives me an opportunity to talk about hypocrisy. But the first one he talks about is hypocrisy and when we give money. The next one he talks about in chapter 6 is the hypocrisy when we pray. And he said, you're putting masks on, pretending you're somebody that you're not. Amen. And then he talks to them about hypocrisy and fasting. But y'all try fasting first before you get to the hypocrisy part. But in Matthew chapter 6, verse 19, he leaves for a moment from the theme of hypocrisy, and he goes, and we start in verse 19. The Bible reads, lay not up for yourselves. The idea of the phrase lay not up is to set aside, to store, or to hold dear. And then he uses the word treasure. So he says, lay not up for yourselves treasures. What's a treasure? Do you know? Something you value. Something you hold dear. What do you do with your treasures? Mr. Howard. Keep them, store them. What do you treasure? My kids. My wife. Good call. I'm just helping you here. She's not in here, is she? No, good save. But this will be on live stream forever. And so, and this is good. We're okay. Wife and kids. Kids and wife. We're good. Do you treasure anything else? Family. Yeah. Amen. Good. Good call. Amen. Then anything else, like a gun or anything, stuff? Okay, we'll get to that later. Okay. So there are things that we treasure. My soul. You're really going to go there. You're going down, Howard. That's it. In case you didn't hear, he said hair. Just for show. It was, but we're over with now. Good thing I like your kids and your family and your mother and me. Good thing. Hair, whatever. He said, lay not up for yourselves treasures, stuff you value, stuff you cherish. Is it wrong to have treasures? No. In fact, the Bible is clear about how parents should lay up for children. The Bible is clear that we are to be stewards of that which God gives us, to plow and harvest so we don't suffer in the cold. There are strong principles about treasuring things. But notice the phrasing that Christ used. Lay not up for yourselves, meaning stuff I value. I think, for me, I can understand the word treasure by two statements. I treasure what I'd pay for, and I treasure what I'd pay a reward for. If I found it, or if it was found, I'd pay a reward for it. And if I wanted it, and it had value to me, and I'd spend money for it, that's a treasure. He says, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon the earth. Why? Because three issues come to mind. Moth, rust, thieves. Amen. Anytime you try to treasure material things, they're going to break. You're going to lose them. Amen. They'll be stolen. Right. You know, you drop your phone, it's like, right? I mean, there are things you look at and say, oh! And he says, don't lay up treasures on earth for yourself. Okay? Contrast, verse 20. Notice the difference. Verse 19, lay not up. 20, but lay up. Amen. That's not a basketball thing, but okay. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Now I have two locations where I can put treasures. Number one, I can put treasures on, and I can put them in. Well, wait a minute. If I have treasures on earth, what happens? Moth, rust, thieves. 21, or 20. Do I have moth in heaven? No. No rust. No. Can you imagine that? Amen. A world without rust. A world without moths. Praise the Lord. A world without thieves. Praise the Lord. Amen. That's interesting. So, I know where I put my stuff on earth. I have a box in my office. What's in that box is worth nothing of money, but it's worth everything of value. Do you know what I mean when I say that? So, along the way, I get little notes and treasures from kids that write notes to me, or they color a paper for me, or they draw me, or some of your kids have been creative. Never had blue hair before, but I'm there. And I take those home and I put them in a box. And sometimes I'll go back to that box and I'll remember your kids and I'll pray for them. Amen. And if my heart was feeling a little low, I find strength. Because I treasure those. I keep them in a box. But how do I put treasures in heaven? I mean, do I have a box in heaven? I mean, what are we talking about here? Because if I understand treasures, and there will be no problem with treasures in heaven, how do I put stuff there? And what stuff would that be? Well, then, there's one more bit of teaching I want to do before I really start my sermon. Preaching on hair this morning. 21. He's back to the third use of the word treasure. In fact, the time that treasure as a word was used before this would go back to when the wise men came and brought treasures to the king. Okay? Now he says in 21, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Notice how he says that there is a tethering between your treasure and your heart. Do I have any brothers and sisters who are in the same, like they're in the same room and your sister or your brother is in here? Oh, that would be classic, yeah. How about youngers? Most of my youngers are out. This is cool. Come on. Jesus knew your heart. Stand right here, if you would, please. Hey, he's your brother. Hold hands. When was the last time you held your sister's hand? Right now. Okay. Hold hands. Don't stop. You should see his face. Go back and watch this. You don't like me? Don't pick on my hair. So, I want you to be treasure. Okay? And I want you to be heart. Okay? Jesus said, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Amen. Okay, treasure, come with me. Let's go see Brother Will. Look at that. Heart. No. Heart follows treasure. Oh, right there. Go see. Yeah, I knew you'd break out of camera soon. Now go see Pastor. Oh, look at that. Just precious. Oh, sure. And come down and see Mrs. Pastor. Everywhere treasure goes, heart follows. Oh, wait though. Wait. What if you treasured the wrong thing? What if you treasured the wrong stuff? Where would your heart be? In the wrong place. So if you're going to say, stay with me just a few minutes. I know we have hand sanitizer in the back. It'll be just fine. There's enough naughtiness in my heart to do a lot more, but I'm just going to press on. I promised your daughter that I'd be done by 12:15 for the children church workers' sake. Probably the first time you got out at 12:15. I almost feel like I'm losing control, but I think I got it. My pink tie brother's leaving me. Don't leave me. But if I ever hear someone say to me, my heart is just not in church anymore, you know what that tells me? You're treasuring something. I don't know what it is. But if your heart's just not in church anymore, you stopped treasuring church a long time ago. Because if your heart is, it's a very southern type expression, but if your heart is so far out on God, that means your treasure is so far out from God. Could I just throw one more in? If you ever say to me, or ever hear yourself say, my heart is not in my marriage, my response to you is going to be, then who are you treasuring? Because you're treasuring someone. Well, my heart's just not in this marriage anymore. I want to start a new one. No, you long time ago stopped treasuring the gift God gave you. Because what? Go see mom, treasure. Isn't that precious? When was the last time you saw these babies hold hands? That is just a gift for you, isn't it? You can go away. You'll never forget the attachment of treasure to heart.
Amen.
And Christ brought it up to teach a lesson.
Amen.
You can treasure stuff here and it's going to go away. But you can treasure stuff that is in heaven. And if you let your heart get attached to the wrong treasure, your heart's going to be in the wrong place.
Amen. That's right.
So I ask you, what is it that God treasures? What is it that He would pay a reward for if it was found? What is it that He has paid for? Because if we can identify the things for which He has paid, and we can identify the things for which He'll give a reward, then we have a clear picture of what I need to treasure. And if I treasure His list of stuff, my heart will never be in the wrong place. So let's go on a hunt. Matthew 16. Let's identify the 78 things that God treasures. Just kidding. I told you I'm in the union. I signed a contract for 12:15. If we go over, it's overtime. Matthew chapter 16. I want you to look at verse 26. I'm looking for what is of value to God, what He treasures. Matthew 16, verse 26. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world? Wait a minute. If you gain the whole world, that means you own everything. The whole planet belongs to you. And it says, what is a man profit if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? So there's an identifier, something about a soul. Amen. So there's a follow-up question. Or, what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? So I own everything, and now I own everything, and I want to buy a soul, my own soul. I want to have access to heaven. Can I do it? No. No. Why? Thanks. iPad's up there if you want to finish the message. Could I buy? Look, if you preach it, could I have hair? And this is precisely it. Amen. That the value of a soul is so great. Amen. There is no price to put on it. Right. So you say, well, what does God treasure? Souls. Amen. John 3:16. I'll start, you finish the next phrase. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. The highest price ever paid for anything was the Son of God.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
So you say, are you trying to tell me that if I treasure souls, I am laying up treasures in heaven? That's precise. And if my heart is treasuring souls, then souls will make my heart in the right place. If I am burdened for the souls of men, and I am treasuring the souls of men, I treasure the souls of men through our bus ministry, through our senior citizens ministry, through our school ministry, through our junior church ministry, our Sunday school ministry, park outreaches, anything that we're doing, that we treasure souls, it puts my heart in the right place, even to the place of missions. Say, we're going to have a missions conference. I thought we had one of those already. We do them once a year. It's been a year already? I can't believe it. How much money are we sending out of here anyway? When is it ever going to stop? We could use all that missions money to build a new building and do stuff. When you lose your heart, in other words, when you lose the treasuring of souls, your heart starts to complain about souls. It means you're treasuring your own play pretties and not what He has for you. I've only maybe just thought about it this way. The people who complain about the expense of missions generally are not the ones investing in it. You say, well, Brother O'Malley, it's not fair for you to call me out. It's not fair for you to claim to be a Christian and not want to see the souls of men saved. That's all I can say to you. That's as short and as kindly as I know how. God treasures souls.
Hallelujah.
I just don't feel the missions program anymore. What are you treasuring instead? Well, I think we should put a golf course out there. Maybe a fishing hole and a hunting stand. And we should just turn this into nature resort for believers. And I think if we just took our missions money for a few years and put it out there and made this beautiful park, I think it would be glorifying to God. You see, people don't think that way in church. It's your first Sunday. We are filled with selfish hypocrites.
Amen.
That's all of us. We all want what we want.
Amen.
I don't want my heart in the wrong place. I want to treasure souls.
Praise the Lord.
What else has He paid for? Number 2. Go with me to Ephesians 5, if you would. Ephesians chapter 5. We're looking for the things that God either will pay a reward for or that He's paid for. Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 25. In this passage, he is giving instructions for marriage. If I were instructing you on marriage at this point, maybe we were in a couples retreat or marriage counseling or whatever, I would remind you that there are girl verses and boy verses. It's best to memorize and live your own verse of your own gender. If you make yourself an expert in the other gender's verse, I'm going to say to you that's a boy verse or that's a girl verse. Work on your own problem. Because what happens is couples will start with, well, she's supposed to, the Bible says. And I will say at that point, is that a boy verse or a girl verse? Become an expert in your own verse. Or in other words, clean out your own closet. This is a boy verse, but there's a broader illustration in the verse. Why? It's a simple instruction for men, 4 words. Husbands, love your wives. Men like simple instructions. In fact, we rarely read the instructions, but when they are read, we want it simple. Amen. The rest of the verse is an explanation. Husbands, love your wives. Watch these words now. Even as Christ also loved the church and what? Gave himself for it. So now I see the second thing that God treasures is not just souls, but He, through His Son, Jesus Christ, gave His life for what? Well, that's, if you're going to die for the church, that means you must love it.
Amen.
Yeah, He did. He does.
Praise the Lord.
So, Brother O'Malley, the church isn't perfect. I know. You're here. But He loves you enough to give His life
Praise the Lord.
for His bride.
Hallelujah.
So when I hear people say, Pastor, my heart's just not in church anymore, I'm thinking, Christ treasured the church so much He died for it.
Amen.
How can I give anything less than that?
Praise the Lord. Amen.
So put this together. I'm trying to lay up treasures in heaven where moth and rust doth not corrupt and thieves do not break through and steal. Where my treasure is, there will my heart be also. I want my heart tethered to heaven. I want to treasure the things that heaven treasures. Heaven treasures souls. Heaven treasures the church. Heaven is preparing a place for us.
Praise the Lord.
His church, He's coming back for His church.
Amen. Praise the
He loves it. I wonder, though, sometimes when I watch all the shiny, pretty, fancy, cool name churches of today, is this what he paid for? Is he getting his money worth out of us? He treasures the church.
Amen.
Number 3. Go back with me to Matthew 6. And let me show you what else he treasures. We said treasure is something for which you would pay a reward if it was found. He said that, we also said that it was something for which you would pay money or a high price. Matthew chapter 6, but go to verse 1. Remember I spoke with you about hypocrisy? And one of the 3 areas that he deals with in chapter 6 was fasting, praying, and giving. Hypocrisy can influence our giving.
Amen.
Verse 1. Take heed, watch out, right? Watch out, that you do not your alms. What's an alm? Some sort of gift, an offering of some sort. You do not your alms before men. Remember the idea of hypocrisy? Before men is like an actor on a stage. If you're giving, don't do it to show off.
Amen.
See, people wouldn't do that. Read the next verse. Therefore, when thou doest thine alms, your giving, your offering. You reading that? Do not sound a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have their glory of men. John will now give. You say that never happened in church. I've seen communion tables with Jesus' name on the front and Mama's name on the back. I mean, we've named nurseries after people. Give enough, you can buy a window in a church. Not against mamas. I have one. I like her. But when we do our giving, this is not about attention for us. If you do it for attention, verse 2 fixes you up. You'll get your reward. There's that word, reward, tied to treasure. If you're giving for the reward of men, it'll come. Oh, did you hear the way that trumpet played? Let me just check. Is Mama's name on the back of that? Good. Thought I'd get myself too far down the road. But did you hear how that trumpet played when he gave? Oh, that was amazing. Did you see how much he gave? I mean, that's amazing. Wow, what? Oh! You have your praise of men. That's what you wanted. You got that.
Right.
Verse 3. When thou doest alms, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth.
Amen.
Well, you say, how does that happen? It's like, what'd you give? I have no idea. My left hand moved so fast, my right hand didn't know it. We'll just elevate that to ninja giving. Okay? It's the idea of simply saying, I don't want anybody to know what I gave.
Amen.
Okay? Why? Next verse. That thine alms. Remember, verse 3 is not the end of a sentence. The end of the sentence is verse 4. We don't let our left hand know what our right hand's doing. Verse 3, why? That thine alms may be in secret. Watch these words now. And thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Wait a minute. A treasure is that for which you would pay a reward. And when God sees, number 3, sincere giving, He treasures that.
Amen.
You know, I've seen braggart givers one time had a treasurer in our church. I pastored from when I came home from the field as a church planter in the West Indies, and before I came with Worldwide, there was 5 years where I pastored a church. And I had a treasurer for one season of that in our church. After this incident, which I'll relate to you now, came, he was then the next week not our treasurer. But he called me and he said, Brother O'Malley, I need you to see something about the offering yesterday. It's a Monday. I said, okay. I said, just send me the offering report. No. We received an anonymous gift, and I need you to see it. And I said, well, you know, I was much younger and maybe a little more sharp tongue. I said, if it was anonymous, I'm not supposed to see it. He said, no, I insist. And I said, I insist. I don't want to know. Just send me the total. That's all I'll need to know. Brother O'Malley, I absolutely, please come to my house right now. I said, all right. Against my better judgment, I went. Got there to the house, hey, howdy, everything, all of that, sat down. And he said, here, and hands me the check. Do you know whose name was on that check? His. And in my heart, before the Lord, I'm thinking, you naughty, naughty, naughty man. Grace overcame me at that moment because I did not say what I really thought or felt. And I said, thank you very much. And handed it back to him. I was done the next week. That was it. He said, no more. I'm not going to go through that. He didn't want it to be anonymous. He wanted the glory of man. So have at it, buddy. The offering goes up a bit, this much, whatever. That's fine. Who are you giving to anyway? You want me to praise you? I mean, I don't even want a name on an offering, what do you call that? Communion table. I don't even want that. I just think that we ought to detach our names from the stuff and just simply say, hey, I gave to him and my left hand didn't know what my right hand was doing. And when God sees that kind of giving, amen, he sees it. Amen. You say, well, doesn't he have other things to see? Yes, but he sees everything else too. Amen. He even knows the hairs on our head. Some of us are low maintenance. God treasures sincere giving. Amen. And what does he do? He rewards that. So, how do I know he treasures it? He's paying a reward for it. Amen. So go back over. Souls, church, sincere giving. Amen. Number 4. Go with me now, if you would please, to the book of Hebrews and look at chapter 11. I'm looking for the things God has paid for. I'm looking for the things that he pays a reward for. Hebrews 11 and verse 6. Verse 6. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. Amen. For he that cometh to God must believe. There's 2 references to faith there. Faith, believing. Believe that he, God, is. What does it say? And that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Amen. God treasures faith. You'll never please God unless you demonstrate faith. Amen. When I trust God, he's pleased. Amen. I mean, you who are parents here, you don't want your kids sitting in their room worrying about the bills. You don't want your kids worrying about, is there any food in the cabinet? You don't want your kids worrying about, do we have gas in the car? Why? If your kid began to unnecessarily fear over these things, you'd have to have a conversation with them and say, it's okay, Dad's got this. we have. God will provide our need.
Amen.
You're just going to have to trust Dad that He's got this. How much more so our Heavenly Father.
Praise the Lord.
It is not doubt that He rewards, but rather faith.
Amen.
But then, it's when I think about those four, if you will, pillars of this message, it's then when I begin to understand, wait a minute, God treasures souls, He treasures the church, He treasures sincere giving, and He treasures faith, and then it clicks. I think I have one here. That's this. That's the promised offering.
Amen.
My missions offering.
Amen.
This one offering captures everything God treasures. Souls,
Amen. Praise the Lord.
church,
Amen.
sincere giving,
Hallelujah.
faith.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
Where my treasure is,
Amen. Praise the Lord.
I'm tethered to my treasure.
Amen.
If I spend all of my days investing in souls, church, sincere giving, and faith, my heart will always be in the right place.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
Is your heart in the right place? Well, of course it is. I'm here. I didn't ask that. I can see you here. See, this is the best way I know how to ask this question. Is God satisfied with where your heart is? Treasure, souls, church, faith, and sincere giving. And your heart will be in the right place. Would you stand with me?